Hello, everyone. Good day to all of you. Welcome to this virtual session. We're going to be talking about IAM for the next 25 to 30 minutes. First things first, thank you very much for setting some time apart amidst your busy schedule and joining us for this event. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Vivin Satyam. I've been working in the ManageEngine team as a technology evangelist for the last 9 years. So the topic that we're going to be discussing today is the role of delegation and automation in identity and access management. I'd like to keep the talk short and simple, driving home the point. So what we're going to be talking about today is 4 points. The first point is we are going to take a look at the native delegation methodologies that we are already used to or exposed to, talking about delegation in the light of Windows on-prem, also your Azure Active Directory. And then the second point, which I suggest in all my talks, is implementing a least privileged delegation model for identity and access management. Now, when I say the term delegation, it's very obvious that it's not for the admin accounts. I'm talking about delegation for your non-admin accounts, right? So how do you implement a least privileged delegation model for your non-admin accounts? That's the whole idea. Point number 3 is checklist for effectual identity creation and management. Now, whenever you create accounts, you creating users, onboarding them and then modifying their accounts and deleting accounts is something that happens on a regular basis in all the IT organizations across the globe. So why not bring in a standardization while you are trying to create accounts, modify accounts, as well as deprovision accounts, right? So we're going to be talking about that checklist. That's point number 3. And point 4 is the role of identity and access management by exerting supervision, right? So how do you automate the process of IAM? By exerting supervision. Now, when you automate tasks, right? So when you automate tasks, there are a variety of tasks that you can automate, like creating users, cleaning up your Active Directory, managing licenses, offboarding users, and all that. But these automation processes more often than not involve some critical actions like disabling accounts, changing licenses, or deleting accounts, or moving them from one OU to another OU soon after the accounts are disabled and all that. So at the time of performing or automating a crucial task, why not try and exert some kind of supervision so that you as an administrator will be able to have complete control over the automation, right? So only after your approval, an automation that's supposed to execute a crucial task will execute in your infrastructure. That's the whole idea, right? Now let's dive into the first of 2 topics, which is delegation. Now, when I talk about delegation, let's take a look at the native delegation models that we are exposed to for more than 15 years now, right? So let's have a look at what delegation actually is, because I really believe in starting from the basics. Now, the whole idea of delegation is you have a higher administrative authority who wants to give specific administrative rights to other users or group of users on special containers and subtrees, right? So for example, let me jump to my virtual machine. This is a 2012 R2 box. And I opened up my Active Directory users and computers, which you have been exposed to for more than 15 years now. If you would want, let's say, to grant a permission to a user named J on let's say, an OU, so let's say the UK OU, right? So what you do is you have 2 ways of doing this, okay? One, you can use the delegation of control wizard, pick the right user, and then grant the user whatever permissions you want, and hit apply so that the user J will have some sort of control or the specified control over the UK OU. Okay, so this is one way of delegating. So this is how a higher administrative authority grants specific administrative rights to a user named J in our example. Okay, now what happens in the backend is an access control entry can grant specific administrative rights for the user J, on a specific OU, right? So what basically happens in the backend is, so it's all about ACEs and ACLs, and we know this, right? So when you actually try and grant a permission to a user, everything is going to take effect if you take a look at the properties of this account, right? Everything is about access control entries and access control lists. So if you add a user to this OU and give the user certain permissions, you are basically adding, the access control entries on the access control list of this specific OU, which is the UK OU that we are talking about. That's the whole idea. Now, we know this, right? And when you talk about delegation, you'll also have to keep in mind that inheritance also plays a key role here, okay? So when you delegate an action to a user belonging to the UK OU, and if this OU has, let's say, 5 child OUs inside, the child OUs can either inherit permissions from the parent, or the child OUs can have their own set of permissions. That's inheritance, right? So you'll have to be really careful while delegating access to other users using the native methods, right? And the other common method, we've already had a look at the first method, which is delegation of control wizard. The second method is group-based delegation, right? So you want a user to be able to perform a certain action in your infrastructure. What you do is you just open the user's account, go to the group properties, add the right groups to the user so that the user gets the right privileges, okay? We know this too. So these are the two common methods that administrators use in order to grant permissions or delegate permissions to other users. Now, this is just for your on-prem, okay? And I told you, when it comes to on-prem delegation and these two common methods of delegation, it's all about ACLs and ACEs. Now, even though we have been exposed to this technology, Active Directory, for more than 15 years, we'll have to understand the depth of this technology, the penetration of this technology in our organization, because there are ACLs and ACEs that can be misused by an attacker if he or she gains hold of the right credentials. So it's really important for us to understand what we are doing when it comes to delegation, either group-based or using the DOC, which is the delegation of control wizard. Because when you actually give the wrong user, the right user the wrong privilege, or the wrong user the right privilege, it's wrong in both ways, and it could be a bit tricky in order for you to find out what exactly is going on. I'm going to show you one example where, let's say, an ACE, ACL kind of delegation has gone wrong, and what's the impact of this, okay? Now, there are various ways by which you can take over a user's account just by modifying the ACEs, okay? I'm going to show you one example. So this example is of an insider gone wrong situation, okay? Insider gone wrong. So the ACEs that I had shown to you in the previous slide is all about, manipulating your existing accounts in your infrastructure. So let's say I have managed, there are a couple of ways of doing this. So let's say I have managed to take over one such insider account who has access to a server, okay? And it's no big task. You have tons of resources available online that talk to you about the common misconfigurations that you can do while delegating. So if your organization has not paid enough attention to the delegation protocols that you have in place, this is what can happen. This is something that can happen to any infrastructure, because Active Directory's technology is common. So as an insider, what we're going to do now is we're going to try and take over Active Directory in less than 5-10 minutes, okay? Assuming that the ACLs and ACEs have already been exploited. So this is an insider who has access to your servers, who's trying to gain access to the entire infrastructure accounts in less than 10 minutes, okay? So when you add me to the right groups, or when you actually manipulate the ACEs in the right way, you get access to servers. That's no big deal. Now, when you get access to servers, you also get access to basic tools like the command prompt, okay? Now, what can a user do with server access and with a basic tool like command prompt, right? When you log into the server, you get access to basic tools like your Active Directory users and computers, You get access to command prompt, event viewer, and all that, unless and until there is a certain restriction in place. But as an attacker, I'm interested in two files to compromise the Active Directory, the on-prem Active Directory. And the two files are, the first one being the Active Directory database itself. Okay, so if you go to C drive, Windows, NTDS folder, you have something called ntds.dit, which is the Active Directory database. Now, what does this file have? Well, this file has all your user information, and this file also has your user password hashes. Okay, not the actual password, but the hashed version of the passwords. So I definitely need this file. Okay, but this file is encrypted, so I need a key to unlock whatever is there in this file. Okay, the key is present in a different location, of course, in the same server. So that location is, you go to C drive, Windows, System32 config, and system file. Okay, so you need these two files. But the problem is, you cannot just copy, and paste this file somewhere. Why? Because there is an operating system level encryption on the file or the database that you're trying to copy. Okay, there's an EFS. So no matter how many times you try, this is an active database, so you'll not be able to copy the database. Okay, and the second way of doing it is you can install maybe a third-party software that will help you crack down Active Directory. But if you do that, the chances of your identity getting exposed are really, really high. Okay, so what else can you do without actually revealing your identity or leaving minimal digital trails of your actions? Well, you can use the command prompt, and the command prompt has given us various access to various utilities, and one such utility is vssadmin, using which you will be able to create shadow copies of any volume that you want. And the vssadmin has one specific command which we are going to use in order to copy the Active Directory database and the system file, and that command is the create shadow command. Okay, let's try and do this. So vssadmin, admin create shadow. I'd like to create a shadow for the entire C drive here, so I'm going to try and create. So it says successfully created shadow copy for the C drive, and you have the copy ID and the copy name. Okay, and moving forward, we'll be working on the copy, not on the actual C drive, but the shadow copy of C drive. Okay, so whenever you need to type in C:, you'll have to replace C: with the shadow copy volume name of C:. Okay, so we're going to try and copy the first file, which is the Active Directory database. So copy. So the file that I want is inside the C drive. Now that we're working with the shadow copy, I'll have to type in the shadow copy volume name of C drive. So I've done that. So C, let's do this. So C Windows NTDS folder, and inside the NTDS folder, it's the ntds.dit file. And I want the file pasted, let's say, on my desktop, okay, somewhere here. So I'm going to type in the location as C:, users, Vivin-1438, and there you go. I want the file on my desktop. Now, if I hit enter, and if the command is right, you will see the Active Directory database getting pasted somewhere here, okay? So it says one file copied, and you have the Active Directory database. Now, I have all your user information along with the password hashes of the users right on my desktop, okay? And the file is less than 25 megabytes. I can easily send this as an attachment to my Zoho mail or Gmail or whatever it is, and then take this file home and start my attack kill chain. But I need access to one more file. So I need to copy another file, which is the system file, okay? And we know how to do this using the command prompt. Just change the location to the system file and paste it on the desktop. You have both the files that you want. Now that we have pressed for time, I'm not going to proceed to step number 2, which is extracting password hashes using the system file. I've already done that to save time. So I'm going to jump directly to step number 3, the final step of our attack, which is how do you crack the password hashes, okay? So after extracting, the hashes from the ntds.dit file, the hashes would look something like this. Okay? You see the, the hashes on the screen. So these are actual password hashes. Okay? Now, how do you crack these hashes? Because if it's an encryption, you can decrypt, but this is hashing, and hashing is not reversible. So the only way by which you can crack a hash is to match the hash. Okay? So you do a Control A, Control C. You can use, your favorite, hash crackers if you have any. I like to play with CrackStation. So just go to crackstation.net and you get your hands on a free password hash cracker. So I just paste my password hashes here. I confirm that I'm not a robot. All right. And when I hit crack hashes, you'll be able to see the actual passwords right here. So you have the hash, okay, the algorithm that was used for hashing, which is SHA-1. You also have an MD5 hash here, and you have the actual passwords, okay? Please excuse the strength of my passwords because this is just a test setup, okay? So the idea is pretty simple. If you don't pay enough attention to the ACEs and ACLs that you are manipulating using one of the two delegation methods that we discussed, it's just a matter of time in which your Active Directory goes to the wrong hands. Okay? And this is the same for other delegation methodologies in other technology platforms. For example, you have Azure Active Directory roles. So you can map a role to any user and then give him or her the access. Okay? It's again another version of manipulating their access controls. Okay? So the idea here is the core idea when it comes to delegation, I'm talking with the non-admin users, is to be non-intrusive. Okay? You'll have to ensure that only the administrators have the keys to your kingdom and not the other people in your infrastructure. Now, how does, or what is the checklist that we'll have to keep in mind when we talk about delegation, right? So there are a couple of checklists that I'd like to introduce. One is the restriction has to be really precise. In other words, it has to be precise based on actions, users, groups, OUs, or even attributes. If you don't want a user to touch or fill a specific attribute of another user, you should be able to even restrict that. We are talking about restriction that goes deep enough, right? And the second point is use your high privilege accounts only for actions that require that level of privilege. Okay. Now, I have been to organizations for consultation and I've seen people use shared accounts for admin access. Okay. Of course, you have PAM and other solutions, but still there are users using domain admin account for non-admin actions, and also the habit of using shared accounts is still prevailing. The last point is when you delegate an action to another user in your infrastructure, it's very important for us to review events and take corrective actions. Okay, so you'll have to have a methodology by which you'll be able to review what you have delegated and what the users have done. And if the users have done something that they shouldn't be doing, you should be able to take corrective actions. Okay. Now, how does ManageEngine help? It all boils down to this. How does ManageEngine help in implementing a least privileged delegation model? Well, we have something called task controllers. Okay, a task controllers is nothing but a bunch of actions put together in the form of a role. Okay, and the role has a variety of actions that you can, as you can see on the screen, and every checkbox here corresponds to an action. Okay, so let me show you an actual role. And there are different kinds of roles, just to let you know. Okay, there can be a super admin role, an OU admin just for a specific OU of accounts. You have your help desk role for resetting password, unlocking accounts, and then you have the HR role for onboarding users. So the roles can either give you full access. You have the color codes right here. So the admin role has full access, and then you have restricted access to other users. That's the whole idea. So how do you give them restricted access, okay, right, or controlled access? Well, that's when a tool like AD Manager Plus comes into picture. So this is a tool from ManageEngine, which is AD Manager Plus, that's going to help you implement a least privileged delegation model. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, while the application is loading, okay, I am going to quickly show you a few things here. Now, what you can achieve with this tool is not just delegation, but also this tool will help you to audit the actions done by your users, okay? Be it creation, deletion, modification, or your users have, modified the Office 365 licenses of another user. You'll be able to keep a track of all that. And this can go back in time. Right now, you're seeing a screenshot from 2017, right? So, which means we will be able to, we will be able to go back in time and pinpoint the exact action done by the user, okay? So, the delegation, this is AD Manager Plus, okay? That can help you manage your on-prem Active Directory as well as your Office 365 infrastructure. And everything, as I mentioned earlier, is in the form of roles. You have built-in roles like super admins, move users, user creation for the HR and all that. You can also create your own role, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, you will also be able to audit the actions done by the technicians, okay? So this is where you go to add your technicians. Let's say you have your HR user. You don't want the HR to be able to access the Active Directory users and computers or any of the thing, or you don't want them to be having access to any server tools, okay? So what you do is you just add them as technicians. Okay? I've already added the HR as a technician, and I've given the HR the role of user creation here, okay? So the HR has now logged in, okay? And I've given the access to the HR to just one OU. I can restrict access to, even to a single OU if I want. And I have mapped the role of user creation to the HR. I can also grant the users any role that I wish, okay? Now that we're talking about creation, I'll also have to map a template because I don't want the HR to be able to see anything and everything, okay? So I map a template to the HR account and then have them create accounts. I'm just going to show you how this works, okay? So I'm going to sign out, right? And I'm going to log in as the HR. So I'll quickly show you the HR account here. The HR does not have access to any other group other than domain users, okay? Just basic access. Now I am going to log into the application as the HR, right? Okay. I type in my Windows credentials, which is the HR's username and password, and I log in. When you log into the tool, you'll be seeing a world of a difference in the user interface, okay? The HR will not have access to any other actions or tabs except from the ones that are enabled in the role, okay? So now when I actually log in, the role takes effect, the restrictions take effect, and I just have access to one option, which is creating a single user. Now, when I go to create a single user, okay, let's try and create an account. And remember, I've already mapped a template for the user, and the template can be customized so that it is just a basic form with the other values hidden in the back end, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a user from the HR's perspective. So I'm going to do this, okay? Test test HR admin, okay? So now I'm going to create an admin account. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose from one of the titles here. So I choose the title to be IT admin. So depending on the title that I choose, the other properties will be populated for this user account. Let's see this in action. So I go and hit create, test HR admin, successfully created the user is created, and the user is created in the New Zealand OU. So when I go to my Active Directory and open up my New Zealand OU and look for test HR admin, test HR admin is right here. When I open the user's property, you see that all the properties are populated for this user account, including the group membership, the Office 365 account, and the right licenses. And you can even create an Exchange mailbox for the user all in one shot, okay? And all this just by filling in 3 fields, okay? So that's the best part of AD Manager Plus's delegation model, okay? We did not give the HR the access to servers. We did not add the HR account to any special groups. The user is still part of domain users, but the HR was able to successfully onboard an admin account and a technician account inside of Active Directory, Office 365 and Exchange. Okay, that's the whole idea here. Now I'm going to jump to a different topic altogether, which is automation, right? The whole idea of automation is to, when you do a certain task repeatedly, why you can always think of automating the process. Okay, so when to automate the process is when you do it repeatedly. Number two is if you have a basic requirement of reducing human errors, because when you manage a technology for more than 5, 10, or 15 years that you have in your office, there are too many people getting involved in the process, too many administrators, too many help desk technicians, too many HRs and all that. So you have to reduce data pollution, which is incorrect syntax by all those manual entries. You'll have to maintain uniformity. And the most important of all is you'll have to avoid unnecessary elevation of privileges when you create or modify accounts. Okay. Now for that to achieve all this, you'll have to think and automate as many tasks as you can. Okay. So that it becomes really easy for you to recover from a mistake, whenever it happens. Okay. Now, using AD Manager Plus, which is part of our broader identity and access management suite from ManageEngine, you will be able to automate as many tasks as you want. This is automating the process of user onboarding to Google Apps, Active Directory, Exchange Server, and even Office 365. Okay, you want 5 accounts to be created, all belonging to different departments next Monday at 10 o'clock. You can create an automation today, given the user details in the form of a CSV file, SQL database, or Oracle database, or even a HR application, and then have the accounts created in all these technology platforms. Okay, that's the whole idea here. So to show to you in action, you go to the automation tab, and then you go to create a new automation. You can pick and choose any category or any action that you want, be it create users, modify users, disabling inactive accounts, enabling. You can even run a custom script, okay? And then you can even, remove licenses from inactive accounts. So let's say you have 5 users who have left the organization, okay? Or there is a change in department. So you can very well use the option of removing Office 365 licenses or automate the process in order to get things done. Now, what if you want to do something that you don't find in the list? Okay, how would you create your own logic for automation? Well, that's when we give you an option to write your own policy, which is automation policy right here. Okay. Now, using the automation policy, you are free to create your own logic. Okay. You can decide what should happen when. Okay, so let's say I would want to disable users who have left the organization, and immediately after disabling them, I would like to reset their passwords. Okay, so I reset their passwords, and after resetting the passwords, I am going to move them to a different OU. I don't want them to be in one specific OU, so I move them to a different OU, and I wait for, let's say, 30 days, okay, or let's say 365 days, and then I will want their accounts to be deleted. Okay, I can write my own logic and save this as a test policy. Okay, test, and it's saved. Oops, the password is empty, so I just type the password here. All right. Okay. And after typing in the policy, I hit save. All right. So I've created a new automation policy here, which is my logic, and I can then map it to an actual automation. So if I go to create a new automation now, and you will see the policy that I have just created. You'll see the policy test right here. Okay, so I select the policy test, and then I can pick and choose the input. Okay? The input can be in the form of a report, it can be a CSV file, or it can be a SQL, Oracle, or any HR application or IT service management tool that you have in your office. Okay, so this is how you create an automation from some of the out-of-the-box actions, and also by writing your own logic. And okay, you can use the automation not just for onboarding users. You can also use the automation for offboarding accounts or cleaning up your Active Directory and Office 365. Okay? You can let the automation scan your Active Directory or Office 365 or Exchange infrastructure and perform the actions that you want by writing your own logic. Okay, so this is just the tip of the iceberg here. I'm not even diving into the functionalities, but one point that I'd like to repeat is we've been talking about delegation, automation, and all that, and I've already told you that you can automate anything that you wish to automate. But one point that I'd like to stress is when you are trying to automate an action in Active Directory or Exchange or Office 365, we know how automation is. As administrators, we might have experienced this more than once during our careers. Okay, we want an action to take place in Exchange, Office 365, or Active Directory. That's why we automate something. The expectation is what you're seeing on the screen. Okay, but as administrators, we know what the reality is. When you want an automation to do something and it does exactly the opposite, that's when you understand that things have gone wrong. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to drive home is you can automate any task that you wish, but please make sure that the automation is supervised or controlled by you. Okay, now AD Manager Plus gives you that ability as well. Okay? So let's say you're trying to execute a policy here, or you're trying to disable users. Okay? So how do you actually control the automation as an administrator even before the action takes place? Well, just select this checkbox which says implement business workflow, which links this workflow link takes you directly to the workflow tab right here, which is nothing but a request and approve methodology. So the automation is going to raise a request to you, the admin, for disabling accounts or deleting accounts. You can have multi-stage approval mechanism, and only when the executor says yes to the automation, the action will take place in Office 365 and Exchange or Active Directory, right? If you feel that these many levels are not required, you can keep it really simple. You can have just one level of approval. So the executor, which is the administrator or the line manager or the head of the department, decides whether this automation should proceed or whether this automation should be modified and then executed or completely cancel the automation. Okay, so to put it across in simple terms, the application can help you manage, report, delegate, automate tasks in AD, Exchange, and Office 365. And it would also help you gain insights about various aspects of your Active Directory, which in other aspects are left behind. People are now talking about cloud and all that without even realizing the fact that they operate in a hybrid mode, which means they'll have to pay attention to the on-prem as well. Okay, so it's really important for us to understand what's going on in Active Directory, which obviously talks to your other technology platforms that you have in your infrastructure as well. Now, the last aspect that I'd like to discuss when it comes to implementing an IAM solution is how good is the application in talking to other business applications. Now, AD Manager Plus is one module of the broader IAM suite that we've been talking about so far. Now, the application AD Manager Plus can very well integrate with other technology platforms, ranging from your help desk software to your IT service management tool to even the popular databases available out there on the market. It can even forward important actions carried out by your admin accounts, your HR, your help desk technicians through the application in the form of a syslog to a central log repository. Okay, so someone deletes a user using AD Manager Plus, that's a very crucial action. So the event is captured by the application and it can even be forwarded as a syslog to your log repository. Okay, now this is how the integration of AD Manager Plus can help a help desk tool or an IT service management tool very easily. Okay, so your IT service management technicians, when they log into the application, which is the IT service management application, they will be able to see additional Active Directory and Office 365 management capabilities right in this console itself. So without having to log into another tool, they will be able to perform actions right from one console. Okay, so I've been talking about AD Manager Plus all this while, but just to let you know, AD Manager Plus is just one piece of a largest IAM suite from ManageEngine, which is AD 360. So using AD 360, you'll be able to streamline user lifecycle management, audit your on-prem and Office 365 and your file servers, implement single sign-on, multi-factor authentication to your endpoints, your servers, and also your applications, implement SSO for your applications, come up with a self-service module, and you also have a backup and recover piece that comes along with AD 360, right? So I hope you found the session informative. If you have any questions, I'm available to take questions. So please keep the questions coming. I'll make sure to get back to you with the answers by the end of the session. Thank you very much for your time and patience. All of you have a wonderful day.